Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Certainly Allah's deen is Islam. 3. 19. What is Islam? Translation of Islam ki hai? What did Allah say? The Quranic perspective. Ghulam Ahmed Parwez 1964. Talui Islam Trust. Registered. 25B, Gulberg 2, Lahore. 6. The Law of Requital. We have seen in the previous chapter that the whole concept of deen revolves around the focal point that man's every deed, even a passing thought crossing his mind, gives rise to an effect, and these effects are produced according to the divine laws. In other words, whatever the divine law has stated will be the particular effect resulting from any action, that same effect will always be the result of that action. There can never be any change in it. E.g. a person who swallows poison will die. This is because Allah, according to his physical law, has made poison harmful, so it can never happen that you swallow poison and it should have no effect on you, or that it becomes a life giver for you. 6.1 What is the law of requital? A similar system to the one of cause and effect, which is functioning in the physical world, is also established within the human world as well. This law, according to which every deed and intention of man produces an effect, is called Allah's law of requital. In human life, the law of requital is of such fundamental importance that without it the system of the world cannot continue. In an uncivilized savage society, might is right is the accepted law. Whoever has the whip, owns the buffalo. Whereas in a civilized society this issue as to who owns the buffalo is settled according to the law and whoever goes against this decision is punished accordingly. 6.2 The law of requital within the human system. But within the human system there remain many flaws. For example, an individual commits a theft but does it in such a way that no one finds out about it, so he cannot be punished for his crime, or if he is apprehended, he gets the police onto his side, or manages to gain access to the court, and in this way, too, he can escape punishment, or the government or the legislature makes such laws which simply do not declare the particular misdeeds of a special class of people to even be crimes. Just as in the capitalist system such laws are formulated according to which not giving full wages to workers is not considered a crime, or a nation formulates such laws according to which exploiting and looting other nations cannot be declared as being a crime. In the present era, when human beings are divided by nationalism, every nation of the world formulates those kinds of laws according to which the welfare of their own people is a praiseworthy deed, even if they have to go to any lengths to deal with other nations. Modern Machiavellian politics is fundamentally based on this principle. According to this type of politics, the greatest man is that patriot who will even go to the lengths of fleecing other nations in order to protect the vested interests of his own nation. Hence, in this connection, Cavour, a thinker of Italy, used to say, "If we did for ourselves what we do for our country, what rascals we should be." And it was a belief of Walpole that a principled man can never save a great nation because an honorable man can never go to that extent to which it becomes necessary. In order to do this. 6.3 The law of requital in the divine system. Under the human system this is the state of the law of requital, but in the law of requital under the divine system, this kind of error or omission does not remain. We see how in the physical world a man, in the solitude of his room, eats poison. He was not seen or caught by the police, nor was he punished by a court, but the effect of the poison on him was automatic. For the outcome of this action of his, there was no requirement for either a witness or a prosecutor or a court. This action leads to its result automatically according to the law of requital of Allah. It is declared in the Quran that the purpose of the functioning of this awe-inspiring system of the universe is to ensure that the precise result of every deed continues to manifest itself. Allah created the heavens and the earth for just ends, and in order that each self may find the recompense of what it has earned, and none of them be wronged. 45. 22. See also 53. 31. Everything which is in the lowest and highest parts of the universe is pursuing the goal of completing the program of Allah. And the aim of this is that those people who adopt a wrong path in life should receive the recompense of their deeds. And that those who live a righteous life should receive a pleasant recompense in return. In another verse, it is stated, He it is who created the heavens and the earth in 6 stages, and his control is over the source of life, water. And this is to see which of you is best in conduct. 11. 7. For this aim, forces of Allah are present in the whole universe. 48. 4. Which keep an eye on the deeds of every single individual. In Surah Al-Arad it is stated, He knows the unseen and that which is open. He is the Great, the Most High. So his system of accountability is free from interference. It is the same to him, whether any of you conceal his speech or declare it openly, whether he lies hid by night or walk forth freely by day. For each there are such forces in succession, before and behind him. To note down details. They guard him by command of Allah. Allah does not change a people's lot unless they change what is within their own selves. 13. 9-11. You can understand it as follows. But verily over you are appointed forces to keep watch on you, honorable, writing down your deeds. 82. 10-11. Not only the visible deeds, but even the deepest innermost thoughts which cross our hearts. It was we who created man, and we know what dark suggestions his self makes to him. For we are nearer to him than his jugular vein. 50. 16. The name of this personal record is the book of deeds which remains glued to each individual. Every man's fate we have fastened on his own neck. On the day of judgment we shall bring out for him a scroll, which he will see spread open. It will be said to him, Read your own record. Sufficient is yourself this day to make out an account against you. 17. 13-14. 6.4 Every deed establishes its mark. We have already mentioned that the meaning of the law of requital is that the effect of every deed of man continually affects his self. It is possible that under the human system a man may somehow or other shroud his crimes. But under the law of Allah the effects of these crimes which affect his self will not be able to be hidden by anyone when the time comes for the manifestation of results. Nay, man will be evidence against himself, even though he were to put up his excuses. 75. 14-15. It will be said, You were heedless of this. Now have we removed your veil, and sharp is your sight this day. Nothing can obstruct your vision. 50. 22. At this time, every veil of intellectual deception is lifted, and vision becomes so sharp that even the greatest obstacle cannot cause any obstruction in its path. 6.5 Reward and punishment of deeds. From these explanations, whereas this reality has become apparent that, according to the law of requital of Allah, no deed of man can remain without being accounted for, it has also become evident that the reward or punishment for deeds does not come from outside, but is the natural and essential consequence of these deeds themselves. For example, you can understand it as asking a laborer to deliver a note to a certain individual whose home is 3 miles away and paying him 8 annas for this task. This laborer has no interest in this note, nor any concern as to the reason why you are sending this note to this individual. He is only concerned with the remuneration for his labor, which is obtained externally. In such matters, a deed and its consequence has no internal connection or relation. Contrary to the above, you go out for a walk every morning for 3 miles. This results in a beneficial effect on your health. This is the natural consequence of this action, i.e., the 3-mile walk. In other words, you do not receive the recompense for this deed from the outside, this result is intrinsically hidden within the deed. As another example, a student becomes absent from school and the teacher fines him. The effect which this absence from school has on the student's educational ability has no relation or connection to the fine. It is also possible that the student will pay the fine by taking money from his father, in which case the punishment was received by the father, and not the student. But if a child puts his finger into a fire, then the pain he experiences will be the natural and necessary consequence of his action. This pain of his cannot be transferred to his father, or for that matter, to anyone else. The recompense of this deed of his was hidden within the deed itself and he has to bear it himself. A third example can be understood as follows. A person earns some money by his effort and labor and from this income buys some ghee which he consumes. It is obvious that by eating this ghee his body will gain strength. Contrary to this, another person steals ghee and eats it. The effect of this ghee on his body will be exactly the same as the effect on the individual who eats ghee bought from the income earned as a result of his own hard work. This means that as far as the physical laws are concerned, ethics has no effect on them. But this does not mean that in the case of humanity as well, there is no difference between the purchasing of ghee using earned income from personal labor, and acquiring it through stealing. The effect of this action affects the human self, and this is that very point where the sphere of the law of requital commences, which is related to the world of humanity. From this discussion, the following truth is apparent. No deed of man can remain without producing its effect. The consequence of living life according to the permanent values is that it results in the development of the human self. Going against these values results in the human self becoming destroyed. These effects are hidden within human deeds, i.e. these are their natural and essential consequences. These effects cannot be transferred to someone else. 6.6 The effects of one's deeds cannot be borne by another. In this connection, the Quran has clearly stated, "And if anyone does something which affects his self, he earns it against his own self." 4. 111. In another verse, "If you did well, you did well for yourselves. If you did evil, you did it against yourselves." 17. 7. In other words, whoever works righteousness benefits his own self. Whoever works evil, it is against his own self. 41. 46. This was the reason that the voice of revelation declared in very clear words, "Now have come to you, from your sustainer, clear and manifest evidences. If any will see, it will be for the good of his own self. If any wishes to remain blind, it will be to his own loss. I am not here to watch over your doings." 6. 104. The truth is that, as noted in Chapter 2, the individuality and uniqueness of human personality means that those effects which are imprinted on it cannot be shared or participated in by anyone else. The personality of every individual is exclusive in its own right. This is its individuality because of which his being exists. This is why its effects cannot be transferred to anyone else. The Quran has stated, "No bearer of burdens can bear the burden of another." 6. 164. And this is such an established and immutable law on which the whole structure of Deen is raised. For this, let us once again look at the example which has just been quoted. You put your hand into fire and your hand is burnt, due to which you are in severe pain. If you have 10 compassionate friends by your side who would not hesitate to lay down their lives for you, even then none among them can share your pain. It cannot be that your hand is burnt and the pain is experienced by your friend. Similarly, it is impossible that by giving a bribe of thousands of rupees you can become free of your pain. Or that, through the highest of intercessions, a decision be made in your favor so that your pain can be removed. By putting your hand into fire, you have disobeyed a law, and you will have to face the punishment for this. This is that law of requital about which it is stated, "Then guard yourselves against a day when oneself shall not avail another nor shall intercession be accepted for him, nor shall compensation be taken from him, nor shall anyone be helped from outside. 2. 48. You should always bear in mind the manifestations of the consequences of your deeds when the situation will be such that no individual will be of any use to another. Nor will anyone's intercession be accepted, nor will anyone be able to escape by offering compensation, nor will anyone be able to help a criminal. This is the immutable law of Allah in which there is no change or alteration. 6.7 Deeds of Nations. So far, we have discussed that part of the law of requital which relates to the individual life, self, of man. But as has already been mentioned, on the one hand the development of the self of an individual takes place within a collective life. And on the other hand these individuals shape a society which fulfills the duty of taking humanity to its intended aim. Therefore, the law of requital, as with individuals, also encompasses nations within its sphere. Those nations which remain steadfast in respecting and pursuing the permanent values, are bestowed with prosperity and successes in life, and those which work against these values are humiliated and destroyed. Details of this will be covered later. The effects and marks imprinted on the self of an individual are not visible and felt by others, though his character and behavior become a reflection of these. But the results of the conduct of nations become both visible and are felt by others. Hence, the Quran, as noted in chapter 4, in order to verify the truth of its recommended program, suggests this procedure. That one group should establish this program in its practical form and after this observe whether this has produced the same results which are promised by the Quran or whether they falsify its claim. The Quran, addressing Rasulullah, says, "Say, O my people, do whatever you can. I will do my part. Soon will you know who it is whose end will be best in the hereafter. Certain it is that the wrongdoers will not prosper." 6. 135. Tell them, you work according to your program in your place, and I will work according to my program in my place. It will become apparent to you from the results themselves who is the recipient of success in the end. 6.8 Pragmatic Test. The method to recognize the law of requital according to its results, which is known as the pragmatic test, is the best technique of all. There cannot be any more precise and definite technique other than this. However, a difficulty arises in this which has been noted in chapter 1. Basis of Deen. i.e. if we leave this law to operate at an evolutionary pace, then for the deeds and their result to manifest takes a very long time which, according to our calculation, could be thousands of years or more. The way to reduce this time period is for the human Jamaat to become the companion and helper of the divine law. In this way, those results will become manifest according to the human time scale. As far as the self of an individual is concerned, no matter how long the time period lasts between the commission of a deed and the manifestation of its effect, this makes no difference, because human life does not end with the death of the physical body as it continues on even after this. Therefore, if these effects do not manifest here in this life, then these manifest after death. This is that point where, having reached it, certain such beliefs and concepts appear before us which are generally cited in the world of religion, e.g. salvation, sawab, forgiveness, repentance, paradise, hell, etc. This will be discussed in the next chapter. 6.9 The concept of mercy. Ram. At this stage, it is important to clarify one point. We have seen that the law of requital of Allah functions solely on the principle of absolute justice in which there is no room for any concession or intercession. The question is, whether there is even any possibility for mercy or forgiveness in it or not. There is definitely a possibility, but the concept of mercy is different. One concept of mercy is this: that according to the law the punishment for his crime has been meted out to a criminal, but he wails and implores, and the ruler, taking mercy on his condition, forgives him. This is the emotive concept of mercy, which has nothing whatsoever do with the law of requital of Allah. The other concept, and correct one, is that you are in severe pain as a result of having burnt your hand. That same Allah who has made this law that fire burns and that burning will cause pain, has also created such medicines which can give relief from this pain. If, after the first crime of putting your hand into fire, you turn to the second law of Allah and make use of those medicines which He has created, then you will receive forgiveness for your crime. This is the concept of mercy of Allah according to the Quran. In other words, for the recovery of the loss suffered due to going against the law of Allah, you have to turn to another law of Allah. Just as Allah's first law is universal and not individual, in the same way the second law of His is universal as well. After transgressing against any law, turning towards that law of Allah through which that loss is compensated, is called tawbah, repentance. And by following this second law, acquiring protection from the destructive effects resulting from disobedience of the first law, is called maghfirat, protection. The very meaning of maghfirat is protection. According to the law of requital of Allah, the concept of, go, you are forgiven is wrong. This law of tawbah and maghfirat of Allah is applicable to nations in the same way that it is to individuals. If a nation goes against some law of Allah, then the technique to protect itself from the destructive effects of doing this is that it should obey that law of Allah whose effects are constructive and profitable, with even more determination and enthusiasm. The constructive results of this law will provide the means of protection, maghfirat, from the destructive effects of the former mistake. At this point this summary is considered sufficient. Further details will be covered in the following chapter.